right, you faithful few, it's coming down to the wire. It's time to do wiring. I'll mostly spare you the tediousness of the crimping and the wire stripping and all of that, but I'll just show you what we got so far. We've wired up 2 of the internal lights, 2 of the exterior lights, and the fans. However, we have not connected them to the fuse box just yet. I mentioned that this box lends itself well to wiring because it has some built-in wire routing that I used with these ribs here, just cut some holes in it. So here are 2 of our interior lights. Got those wired through here, just some Wago clips. And I just needed to get the one hot coming out of here and the one negative coming out of here and send those over down to the switch. Coming out of the hole here are those 2 puck lights that we have here, just routed down there and in the corner over here. Then those come out from underneath here, run along again through this rib to hold it up in place, right along this way. Comes out of this hole right here, then across here through these 2 ribs, then to this Wago clip. And the positive is just waiting for the main lead to go over to the switch, and the negative is routed over here. So we'll send those 2 around this way, and then kind of down, just floating across here, then across some more wire management down to the switch. Then got the fans hooked up, did a butt connector here between the wire for the fan and just this extra wire running up through here. Actually put it down in what is normally the handle. It's kind of the void that is created by the handle being here. So ran the wires through there. Got 2 of the Wago clips down in there. The other fan comes up into here, and then I'll run it back over right across here. And this is coming down to the temperature switch because I only want those to turn on if it gets too hot in here. But then I also want to turn it off completely. So this temperature switch runs over here to this just normal switch. So, during the winter, I know it's not going to get too hot in here, so we'll just turn that off altogether, just so that this display is not kind of doing a vampire charge sucking out of the battery. I'm sure there's some real term for that. Vampire draw. I'm trying to get the fans hooked up just to test everything, or test my wiring and my connections. The last thing I got to do is run all the negatives. I got all the positive leads hooked up here to the fuse box and to the temperature switch and the normal switch. Just got to get the negatives run. Not to bore you too much with the intricacies of wiring, but got the negative Wago clip down there. So first off, just taking the wire and kind of doing a loose run of it, see where I want it to go. And the main point here is just to get some workable length, but being sure that it's longer than you think you'll need. So I'm gonna bring it down to the fuse box over here. So about right there should do it. Then just strip the ends. So this is stranded copper, so give it a good twist, just to keep it all together, keep it from fraying too much. That end will go into the Wago as is. This one on this end, I think I will end up putting a ring connector on it in order to attach it to the fuse block. I have a sneaking suspicion my holes here are not big enough for yet another wire. By the way, the Wagos are simply held down by a little bit of 2-sided Gorilla Tape. All right, managed to get the wire through the holes. Well, it was a tight fit. All right, try and show you down in there. The wire came through this hole and that hole, and it went down here into the Wago clip. And now we're just gonna close that. Give the wire a little tug just to make sure it's in. Yep, we're good. And then kind of feed the extra bit of wire back out. There we go. Here's the negative coming off of the switch. Pop off the insulation there, and then we got a ring connector to go on to the terminal. You slide that up here, and there's a piece of metal inside that the wire goes into, and then you crimp it. And that just kind of makes a good solid connection, presuming you do it correctly. Then you need a pair of crimpers. This is red, and it looks pink, but it's technically the red. And there's your red crimping location. Get that over there and then squeeze. So this particular crimping tool I am not super thrilled with. I've had a couple issues with it already, and it's brand new. I like to just give it a small tug. I don't want to give it too much of a tug or it will come out. All right, this is gonna go right there. A wiring expert, I am most definitely not, but I think you got a little more flexibility with the negative cable. I want to do kind of just combine these two because I don't want too many ring connectors onto the fuse box. So I plan on combining these two wires into one ring connector, send this guy up into the thermostat switch where the other one is going to the negative cables of the fans. One thing I have not shown yet is connecting a ferrule. This just kind of makes it easier to make some connections where you don't have to worry about these strands coming loose and kind of getting stuck all over the place. This gets them kind of confined into one nice space. So you slide that over there, and then take the crimping tool here, slide it in that area, and then just give it a good squeeze. Now you've got that connection on there pretty good. We'll get some heat shrink and put it over that connection. So I got a piece of steel here because we're going to use a heat gun to melt that heat shrink, and these get pretty hot since they're a heat gun. So just try and apply that evenly around the heat shrink, and it'll melt it around that connection, secure it a little bit. I think my heat shrink tube is a little too big for this wire. Well, I've made this a little difficult on myself since this wire is already in there and attached. So I'm going to combine these two together just by overlapping the wires, giving it a good twist. I'm going to go up in size a little bit here on the ring connector. This is a 14 to 16 gauge connector, just because I have these two combined together. Now, since this is a blue connector, we go to the blue dot. Now I got to get this combined with this and onto the block. Little fingers would be nice. All right, so the batteries will provide the power to the fuse block, and the fuse block will take the power from the positive out over here to the switch, along with the negative to complete. Then this is the power out for when you turn the switch on, is in the yellow and red. The first one goes to actually power the thermostat unit, and then the other one is the power that will get switched on when the thermostat reaches a certain temperature. And then, of course, the negative for that circuit is coming out right here and just attaching really quickly into this one. So let's give it a test. I have been using this little 12-volt battery just for testing things, make sure the things worked when I got them from Amazon. So we're gonna hook this up, try the fans. So the first thing should be if this light turns on, and then this should turn on as well. Fail. All right, you faithful few. Well, it turns out there were two things that I did wrong. One was on the switch. There's two silver poles and one copper colored pole. The copper colored pole is the negative. Should have double checked that, of course. So kept breaking the breakers or tripping the fuses, and finally got that squared away, and then realized that the thermostat switches were upside down relative to how I remembered it. Just needed to flip everything. So once I did, so got the light lit up here, that turns on this relay switch, and then it is set at 80 degrees, And I've got the thermostat reader thingy here, so if I hold on to this and warm it up, we should hear some fans kick on. Oh yeah, those really move some air too. And then if I let go, it should turn off right at 80 degrees. Ah, that is satisfying, you faithful few. So here's a closer look at the fans going. We'll just heat this up again. So we're sucking in air from the outside right behind this wheel, and it's blowing into the box here. Right here, we are sucking the air out of the box and getting rid of it right here. And see that blowing stuff away? So, initial tests are promising. Well, you faithful few, I believe the last time I left you, I was showing that I finally got the fans working. Well, since then, it has been a jungle of wiring. That's all I've been doing for a while, but I think I finally got it completed. So there's really too much to show here, but take you around real quick. We've got 4 lights. There are 4 lights! Now in operation, 2 right there for the inside, kind of underneath. Got 2 more over there. Then we've got our 3 lights there. There are 4 lights! And then the 2 that are up in here, or under there. So it is all about wire management, trying to keep things organized and out of the way. And even though this kind of looks a little messy, it's actually fairly well laid out. Only got a few things to connect. Got the Anderson connector down there to connect. Got a voltmeter. See the hole down there? Got a voltmeter that we need to put in, and still need to connect the heater. Not sure where that's going. But it really complicated matters for myself by putting the lights up on things that move. So that wire has to move with it. And finally got it figured out. This wire here, these 2 were catching on this pillar that comes down as it rolls. So I got a little wedge of wood on there in order to get that wire to fall behind it. So we got everything hooked up and working. I'll tell you what, these Wago clips are lifesavers. You can just unclip them, move the wire as needed. Got a couple down there. These 5 connector dealios are pretty handy. Got the wiring taken care of for up under here. These 2 Wago connectors are for those USB ports. They just come together here, wired them through the little plastic ribs again, so those are super handy. And this wire right here is for that light. It just tracks down here and goes into one of those Wago clips. And you see it closes just fine. It's time to wire up the Anderson connector to the solar charge controller. So here are the Anderson connecting pieces, the ferrules. This is the ferrule crimping tool, and this is the Anderson crimping tool. Tells you what size piece to use based on your thickness of wire. We are using 10 gauge, so we're going to use the 45 amp contact. I've found in order to get these 45 amp contacts to work, I actually have to kind of squeeze them in a little bit before putting them in the crimper. So for the 45 amp, they say to go ahead and put in the connector first. Now I'm sure, so you can see the teeth are on both sides of the connector there, so it should be able to crimp that down. Then take your wire and slide her in there. Once you got it on there, go ahead and just give her a squeeze. Let me pull it out and looky there. Nice crimp. Same with the ferrules here. We're going to use 10 gauge wire, so we need this guy. So now for the ferrule, we want to have it go almost all the way to the end there and have the insulation terminate just inside this yellow sheath. Not the best strippers in the world, but the only 10 gauge I got. Okay, got it ready to go. Just slide it right in there. Get a good grip on it and squeeze. And there you go. Nice solid crimp. And then we'll get this heat shrink on here and we will have one connection ready to go. That is a beautiful thing. So with these Anderson connectors, there really isn't an up or down, but I did notice that these are upside down relative to the ones on the Jackery. And the only reason that can make a difference is you just want to be sure that when you put these in from the back side, there's these little hooks here on the fitting that actually comes in and it hooks around a little piece of metal that's in here. You have to make sure to shove it in the right way for it to actually connect over that lip. If you go the other way, you'll just pull it right back out again. Based on the way that was oriented in the front, I believe we want to have the little latch or the hook part facing up. And this is my positive terminal, so we will go in the red. And I'm gonna go down in the bottom one. Having issues. I think my tape may be getting in the way here. Take two. Supposed to hear a click. No, I don't hear a click. A couple things, you faithful few. I went ahead and actually took this out, made it a lot easier to see what was going on in here, and ended up needing to remove a little bit of the heat shrink as well. So just very carefully with a utility knife, cut that back a little bit in order for this to get in there. I already got the positive wire in. I'm gonna go with the negative wire next. Tell you what, info on these connectors was one of the hardest things for me to find. So whatever I can show to you faithful few, I will. There you go. See that pop in right there? Let's go put this back in the box. PV down here stands for photovoltaic, and here's our plus or positive coming in. This is our positive. It's got the red on it. Oh yeah, perfect. And here is our negative. And we just need a flathead screwdriver. There we go. Now the battery cables, those are going to come from the 40 amp breaker that's connected to the positive bus bar. Bringing you back, you faithful few. The wiring continues. You know, there's only so much I can show you again and again. Just wanted to point out, got the inverter wired up now. There's the positive running over here, barely able to get this arch into the 2 gauge cable, and then got the negative running on down to here. In case I didn't show it already, this is the solar charge controller positive running over to the 40 amp breaker, then down and under the battery support box, and then over there to the charge controller. That's the blue thing. Green wire is the negative, because that's what I happened to pick up from Lowe's. It's really coming down to the wire now, or wires, you know what I mean? And I've got to make a decision on where to put the heater. There really is only one option. So I'm gonna have to do a couple mods to the box in order to do that. Well, I'm running a little test on this heater. I just had to know how hot it gets. So got it plugged in to the battery. It's been running for a while. Got a laser thermometer thingy. Go and check it out. 113. Let's get more in it. 120. That's not bad. It's kicking out some pretty good heat. Okay, that's what I need to know. Basically, I just need to figure out what kind of sheathing or protection I need to put around the heater and how to mount it to the box to where it is safe. Finally got it wired up, you faithful few. That is the last main thing before I can get the batteries in and do the last couple hookups. So this is what I ended up doing. Got some pretty pliable aluminum sheathing and laid it down across the plastic box down here and up the side of this wood support. I had made a little rounded base to attach to the bottom of the heater, and that's just to have it be a relatively solid connection, given that the bottom of the box curves as well. We got that put in and wired up. Wires are routed underneath the plastic part of the charge controller. come up here and are all connected into this thermometer relay switch. And then that runs right over to the switch over here. So it's the same setup as the blower fans over here, just set up for the heater over here. That aluminum sheathing, the little wood block, and the fan itself are all kind of connected together with double-sided Gorilla Tape, and I checked, and the Gorilla Tape is good up to about 150 degrees, which is the highest temperature that I was able to record on the heater, and that was inside in the element. And the plastic didn't get much over 100 around the casing. So that's all should be good. So I went ahead and grabbed the 12-volt battery, the small one, threw it in here, hooked it up, got some ice cubes out of the freezer, put the little temperature sensor up against the ice cube, cooled it down to 40 degrees, which is where I have the thermostat switch set to. And sure enough, the heater kicked on. So we are all wired up with all the accessories. Now it's just time to get the batteries in here and do, I don't know, 7 or 8 final hookups. Well, one of the many potential problems with my setup is I don't have a fantastic way to secure the batteries in the box, especially with me planning on rolling it around from the shed up to here and back and around camp and whatnot. It could get a little bouncy in there, and the way I'm gonna secure these batteries down is just with some command strips. So these are the 20-pound variety. You can put one here, and then one way over here. And I'm hoping between 20, 40, 60 pounds. Not only will it secure the battery to the bottom of the box, but also being Velcro, I'm hoping that I'll be able to remove them as well. All right, there they are, you faithful few. Batteries are in. Had these already ready to go. So just gonna hook these up. So I'm hooking the batteries up in parallel, which is positive to positive and negative to negative. And then we'll come off of this positive, go into the switch, and then over to the bus bars, and then we're going to come off this negative, go to a shunt, and then over to the negative. And then that should draw evenly from both batteries. And that should give us, if I do my math right, about a 2400 watt hour system, which, like our Jackery Explorer 1000 is a 1000 watt hour system. So we should at least double our capacity if this even works. Oh my gosh. With this the way it is, dropping something is a nightmare. I was supposed to pay more attention to that. Pause. Oh! Rugged Mountain Mister to the rescue. All right, Rugged Mountain Mister saved us. Get back to it. Now for our positives. Gotta make sure not to drop them, which is easier said than done. Sometimes with those screws, they just kind of pop out when you least expect it. Got this Bojack fuse to get on here as well. A little tricky, but we'll get it around the corner here. There we go. And then go ahead and tighten this one down. And we'll need to access this one again, come down here to the shunt. So I presume there's some sort of rule about installing things directly on the batteries, but kind of don't have another choice. The 40 amp breaker for the DC fuse box is going right here. Just again attached with a command strip. Gonna just stick the shunt like so, right about here. Gonna need to clean these wires up. Actually, I have to look up exactly what they do and how to hook them up. I know I don't need the black one, that's for a GX device. We're still trucking along, you faithful few. Just down to a couple of connections. Here's one of the main ones. Thought I'd take a moment to show you. At risk of dropping something down into the void, the abyss here again, I gotta bring this bolt up through the bottom of this fuse. Success. This is the cable connecting basically the battery power to the switch, the kill switch. If I loosen this one up a little bit, I can swing this out. Give me the room to get this lug on. Perfect. $15 different ratchet sizes. Okay, there we go. Battery connected to here. Now, just gotta run from the switch to the bus bar So I think I need to get the shunt on here in order to know how to route the last couple of wires. Again, I'm hoping just a command strip, Velcro command strip will do the trick. Doesn't need to hold it super securely, just don't want it wiggling around. I picked up a couple of these 45-degree angle lugs. I figured there would be a case where I could use them or actually need them, and this is indeed one, going from the kill switch over to the bus bar. This is perfect. So I'm gonna go, I need it to curve like this, so I want them to be like this. So we'll slide that on there. To me, this is the way to go. I mean, this thing is only 15 bucks, but I have yet to have a bad crimp. Usually 3 will do it. You can kind of tell by the sound. This one going on in this direction. And whatever brand this is, the lugs actually flare out at the end, which is super handy for trying to get them over this stranded copper wire. Right, there's our cable. Let's go hook it up. We're gonna need to bend in and then back out. Much better. Now, whoa, almost dropped that one. Have to get Mr. back out here. Got that one on nice and snug. There we go, all hooked up. Batteries in parallel to pass the fuse over to the switch over to the bus bar from here to the inverter, from here to a breaker to the DC, from here to a breaker over to the charge controller. I think that's everything. Now I got to figure out the shunt. Well, after about a half a day of research, I feel confident enough that I have the Victron Smart Shunt figured out, as well as the temperature sensor. Now that took a little bit of research, but here's the quick version. If you have the Victron IP65 500 amp Smart Shunt and you want to run the temperature sensor from this gray auxiliary cable here, you will need to cut the wires and splice in that temperature sensor in order to get that hooked up. And it comes with a pretty hefty lug. That's the silver one on the top there. Managed to get the positive cable from the other battery on there, the Bojack fuse, and the Smart Shunt all hooked onto that positive lug. Just by the nature of how I had to wire all this up, I was not able to get the covers on either of the bus bars or the cover on the DC fuse box right here. I'm gonna hope for the best on the DC fuse box, but went ahead and put some electrical tape over the bus bars. But I have run through everything. I've checked all the connections, make sure they were nice and secure, and there's nothing left to do but to turn on the kill switch and see if this thing works.